To remind viewers, we're looking at our live pictures from Sean McDermott Street, where the Pope is expected to arrive very shortly now. I'm not sure exactly what will happen there. Joe Little was reminding us that the Pope is very often inclined to go off script, if I can use that phrase, and to engage in ways that aren't necessarily planned in advance for people to turn out to meet him. So perhaps there'll be a chance.
And to clarify his security.
I'm sure it does.
But all of these people have been cleared by security. They're all wristbanded.
Well, I think I saw those young ladies with wristbands.
So the Gardaí, etc., are satisfied that he's in good company here. No one's going to hassle him. But when he goes in to there's the Our Lady of Lourdes Youth Centre just beside it. This parish has a fantastic history. I mean, apart from its earlier history and the whole sad story of the Magdalen Laundry on Sean McDermott Street, it also has a history of innovation, standing by drug addicts and their families. There's a service here every year in this church. I've seen the monk at that service. I've seen other people from that family and from other families who've been devastated by drugs, and others who have enriched themselves through drugs. They go there. I've seen Christy Moore perform from the altar as they get together to remember their dead, and they've erected a wonderful statue near Buckingham Street to commemorate the dead and the injured from the drugs.
Obviously, it's a great affirmation of the work of parishes like that, and we'll see it later in the visit to the Capuchin Centre, the work they do, often well out of the headlines and really, I wouldn't say ignored, but maybe doesn't always get the attention it might get. And to have a visit like this is an enormous affirmation.
I think so. I mean, the work of the Catholic Church is huge, and the Catholic Church is the people of God, and I think that's something that I really like that the Bishop of Rome, Pope Francis, has emphasised. It is the people of God, and so it's the work of all the people of God that he's concerned about. So he goes to the parish to meet the people, he goes to the favelas to meet the people. He's particularly concerned about the most vulnerable, wherever they are, and that's very often the women and the children, and that's very helpful for many women and children to hear him actually identifying, speaking. He has said that the most important person in the world is the person in front of you, and I think that's a type of an example that we can learn from him. So I think
in his speech at Dublin Castle Day, he specifically talked about women, the ill treatment of women.
Absolutely. He spoke about women specifically. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done there, and I think the fear that I have sometimes is that, of course, the abuse victims it's a very serious case, the sexual abuse, but there are many other sufferings in the world, and the sufferings of women throughout the world globally. Like just this morning I was reading about the women in the young girls in refugee camps in Rohingya, and they are being married off to older men, they are being sexually abused, there's all sorts of things going on there, and like he's the type of man who will remind us of the need to care for the refugees, and it was great to see the refugee family this morning meeting with them.
Yeah, the Hussein family.
Yeah.
What did you make of what he had to say, what the Pope had to say in relation to the abuse issue? Because you've been speaking this week, writing this week, saying it needs to be acknowledged, the Church needs to confront.
It needs to be acknowledged, but I think in Ireland we have done a very good job in the recent history. It was a very steep learning curve. I think I'm a little concerned that it's overshadowing the visit, or has thus far. I think it is very much a global problem, but I think we need to be careful about saying one size fits all. I think other countries can learn from what we're doing, but different countries will have to develop their own procedures to deal with it, because not in every country of the world can you immediately go and trust your police force or your army force or whatever. Legal forces differ, and we know that, and the Church is Church Catholic, it's Church Global. So the issue needs to be acknowledged and addressed, but I think each country has to develop its own way of dealing with it. I would say that the Irish Church has a lot to teach the other churches of the world.
And on the issue of accountability at the highest levels for failures, for cover-ups?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought in particular, actually, Leo Varadkar's comment in terms of the Irish context. He said we must admit that we, the society, we, the government, and the Church have all been culpable. And I think there's a huge level of culpability in the whole Irish society around, we say, the Magdalen Laundries. Like, who brought their daughter there to the Magdalen Laundry? Who left them there? What's the culpability of the men of society? It is a joint culpability, if you like, and the government, who were quite happy to allow the Church to run these agencies. So it's a complex question. It's a complex story of forgiveness and of reparation, which needs to be dealt with. But also we need to open our eyes to what are the sufferings of today. I mean, the number of homeless people, and that's why I'm very glad that he's going to visit the Capuchin Centre.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, and not to dwell on this for too long. But Bishop Brendan, there are people, abuse survivors, people who are. I mean, people who will be upset about this, it will cause them distress, this visit, because of what they're dealing with in their own lives. And what they're still wondering is, where is the action? The words are there, the apology is there, the contrition is there, but where are the actions that a lot of people are looking for the Pope to show leadership on this? I mean, is it unrealistic to expect him to come to Ireland and spell out what he's going to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I first of all want to acknowledge what you're saying. There are people, I'm sure, watching this programme, and that it's a moment of pain for them. And as Bishop Fleming said earlier on this morning, we know ourselves, pastorally speaking, that there's a great number of people phoning our service towards healing, victims who have suffered, and they've been making contact with us towards healing, because they need, with higher focus on the whole papal visit, they need that moment really of healing. I think Pope Francis is trying in different ways to come at it. He did set up a commission in Rome 2 years ago. People would say it needs more teeth in it. I think that is something probably that Pope is going to have to address. He's written his letter again now just this week, using the fact that there's a universal publicity outpouring about this topic. He's got his letter in there, which will certainly raise the awareness of bishops throughout the world to this topic yet again. But you're right. I mean, obviously, there's so much more yet to be done. So much more yet to be done.
Right, we're just looking now at pictures. I think this is the cavalcade, the Pope's car, his Skoda, which of course is much commented on, is somewhere in the middle of that line of cars. That's him travelling through Summerhill, so he's very close now to Sean McDermott Street. And unlike the disappointment of 39 years ago when the Pope drove by and didn't stop, on this occasion we know for sure that Pope Francis will stop at Sean McDermott Street and will almost certainly, we think, greet some of those who have gathered here to welcome him to Dublin and to welcome him to their parish, to welcome him to their home place. This place, as Joe Little was reminding us, that has in many ways suffered so much, but as a community with great spirit and with great determination, and really has never given up. So just turning the corner there, I think that's near the Five Lamps near the North Strand, that part of town, Joe.
Mick Rafferty, a former councillor from the area and a great friend of the late Tony Gregory, was telling me yesterday that Father Peter McFerry used to live there on Summerhill with the Jesuit community, and they remember him very well. And they see a continuity between what Father Peter and his confreres and supporters and laity and what the Salesians are now doing in the parish of Our Lady of Lourdes down the hill, literally here in Sean McDermott Street. Empowering people, bringing a mission to people that the people themselves say they want. And there's the Our Lady of Lourdes Youth Centre, for example, just beside the church, which I filmed in on a few occasions for RTÉ News, and they have fantastic programs, absolutely fantastic programs. As I say, for a community that's been worn down especially by the drugs.
And there's the Pope's car right in the middle of the screen. You recognise it because the windows are down. This is we've learned today is his practice to roll down the windows so people can see him and he can see them. And it comes to a stop in front of Our Lady of Lourdes Church there on Sean McDermott Street.
And I see Clwyd Housing, the Clwyd Housing project, a big social housing project there that's in Buckingham Street and in the general area, has done fantastic work on housing, especially people with social disadvantage. You've probably spoken to them on air yourself, Brian, representatives of Clwyd.
So the Pope now emerging from his car to greet the crowd. I think I saw Archbishop Gerard Martin as well, who had accompanied him. He was at lunchtime at the Papal Nuncio's residence, the Nuncios here at Navan Road, but now he's emerged from his car in the heart of Dublin's north inner city. We're just really almost a stone's throw from O'Connell Street, an area that those of you who visited Croke Park may know, may be familiar with, and in this parish on Sean McDermott Street. Just pausing for a moment of prayer and reflection. I think he's been shown the relic of Matt Talbot, which are housed here, being greeted by parish officials, I'm sure. Again, we've no published schedule for this event. We have lots of detail on other events that are taking place, but this will unfold as it will unfold.
The life cycle of Matt Talbot, if I may come in, Brian, won't be that strange for him. He was one of a family of 12, the son of a violent alcoholic father, if I may quote the Daily Mail, and Talbot himself began drinking heavily at the age of 12. So not unlike a lot of the problems that afflict children in barrios and favelas in Latin America, in the Philippines, and in I don't like to call them deprived communities, but disadvantaged communities in our own inner cities and on the suburbs of many of our towns and cities.
So I have to say that St. John Paul II really wanted the cause of Matt Talbot to go ahead. All we need is a miracle, everything else is ready. So to pray for that miracle, that the cause will be beatified.
Meeting the Lord Mayor there, Councillor Niall Ring, who's on hand to greet the Pope, and other well-wishers. saying a moment ago, this now is the Pope's first chance to meet ordinary Irish people, members of the public. We just want to express their welcome, their appreciation, particularly the people of Sean McDermott Street, their appreciation for the Pope coming to their community, coming to their parish, to greet them, to support them.
And many of these women, or the women Archbishop Dermot Martin has said is a key to try to convert their sons and daughters from the ways of carrying guns and shooting each other, especially in the current feud, which impacts particularly heavily on this northeast inner city area.
It would be the case that we're a very short distance from where the Pope is now. There have been a series of killings over recent years, which have caused alarm and distress, very naturally, as one would expect. But the Pope today bringing joy here to Sean McDermott Street.
It's always amazing, he just takes his time, goes one by one.
And special attention for the smallest of the children there.
Lovely claps.
Yeah.
Well, a special day, obviously, for all of those who are reading the Pope now. And that's his translator on hand, I think, to the right of your picture, to ready to translate any comments.
Pope says he has enough of English if he speaks slowly. He'd understand you.
He addressed the US Congress in English, entirely in English, but in a very staccato way, but very clearly.
Just a moment, pause while they move, I think, towards the Pope Mobile now. So the Pope will just mount the steps. This is the Pope Mobile 2018 version. Some of you may have seen pictures, or in fact, if you were in the centre of Dublin, have seen the original Pope Mobile from 1979.
Of course, he has difficulty mounting the steps, Brian, because he had part of his lung removed as a young man, and therefore his gait is very unbalanced, or rather asymmetrical, and it causes him some pain to climb steps like that, I understand.
And they put a seat in place for him, so he'll be able to rest himself now on the journey. This will be a fairly short journey to the Pro Cathedral, and a chance for anybody who wants to see the Pope, who's well elevated there. And as the podium moves off,
This is something Archbishop Dermot Martin was very keen about. It seems that when he was in America for the last World Meeting Families, as he went through town, he was quite distant from people. Whatever way they organised it for security, people couldn't actually see them. They were quite far away. So Bishop Dermot Martin was very keen that people would be near the Pope. I think this is wonderful to see.
so the Pope will now move slowly down Sean McDermott Street, and then returning to Marlborough Street and proceed towards St Mary's Pro Cathedral, where the Pope's next official function will be beginning very, very shortly. So, warm and enthusiastic crowds there lining Sean McDermott Street. People of all ages. And somebody's been doing good business with papal flags, so it's good for them as well. So coming down now, I think this is towards Cathedral Street, Garden Street area. And he will have passed on his journey the former Magdalen Laundry, of course, of which there is a debate at the moment about what should be done with the building.
And he's passing close, if I may say so, Brian, if I may interject, to where Frank Duff used to work in what was called Monto, a red light district of Ireland, really, especially when there were a lot of military in this country. And Frank Duff, who founded the Legion of Mary, and his friends went into Monto and tried to convert families out of prostitution, and in a very innovative way, he set up a hospital in Harcourt Street where women could live with their children who had been born out of wedlock And this caused absolute scandal and consternation in the Catholic Archdiocese of Dublin. The Archbishop sent a message to him indirectly, Archbishop McQuaid, to close it down. And he said, that's fine, but I put a notice on the door referring people to your office to get an explanation as to why. Because he was punctilious and obedient to his Archbishop.
So turning, they've turned into Marlborough Street now, along by the new Lewis line, which is the new Cross City Lewis there. You just see to the left of the bookmobile. Lewis movements just suspended across the city for a number of hours this afternoon. See why? So crowds lining the street all the way down here, very close now to the Pro Cathedral, opposite the Department of Education. And then the Pope will be greeted and welcomed there by the Archbishop of Dublin. This is, of course, his episcopal seat, his cathedral, his Pro Cathedral. And the Pope will be escorted into St. Mary's, this historic building which has seen so many significant events over the years, church and state occasions. So back down the steps again, and as Joe was saying, he'll take it gingerly but unaided. And Archbishop Martin then will bring him into the church for a short prayer ceremony. Also an opportunity for the Pope to meet some recently married and soon to be married couples, emphasising, of course, that he is here to participate in the World Conference of Families. So we'll be celebrating family life with some of those who are about to embark on that great adventure. So there you have the canons of the cathedral who are clergy from the Dublin Archdiocese who are already there to greet him.
Bishop Eamon Walsh, I think, is it? Who's an auxiliary bishop in the Diocese of Dublin.
And that was the crucifix from Holy Cross College.
And I see Bishop Raymond Field at the far door there is the other auxiliary in the Archdiocese.
That cross has a relic of the true cross that represented.
So the Pope greeting there some of the members of the congregation. A moment ago we saw him being presented with a bouquet of flowers by Ryan and Caroline Feeney from Belfast. He now is making his way to the St. Joseph's altar where the Blessed Sacrament is reserved. And so there will now be a period of silent prayer.
First Brian candle to the survivors of abuse and victims.
Concludes his silent prayer in the altar that houses the perpetual candle to the victims of clerical sexual abuse, and now makes his way back to the centre of the Pro Cathedral, where he will meet a number of couples, newly married, newly engaged, and one couple that recently celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. And here he will respond to their greetings and their comments with what is a scripted response, but the Pope also, we know, sometimes goes off script. So we will listen to what he has to say. We will hear the interpreter interpret his words for us.
Holy Father, we have here this afternoon about 400 young couples, either preparing for or recently celebrated the sacrament of marriage. And I want to ask you some questions and some words of advice. But first of all, we have a couple who have been married for 50 years, and they will say some words.
This is Vincent and Teresa Gamble from Dublin. Just waiting until they get the say-so to proceed.
Holy Father, you may be surprised at this gathering of young people that we are the first people to speak to you. We are grandparents. We have been married for 50 years. Life was not easy for us. Ireland was poor. People struggled. Many had to emigrate. We did not have the many of the support that we exist today. We want today simply to say to the young people here at this gathering, family life is challenging, but it is worthwhile.
Family life was not easy for us. We were supported, however, in a special way by prayer. The quiet prayers that we uttered at moments of challenge and sorrow. The prayers of thanksgiving for the little and great joys along the path of our lives. The prayers which kept us going when things were hard. Marriage and family life are challenging, but with the help of our faith in Jesus Christ, our love has been the most worthwhile dimension of our lives.
So a private word with Vincent and Teresa Gamble after their greeting to the Pontiff, having celebrated their golden wedding anniversary. And now Dennis.
My name is Sinead Kyogan.
And I am Dennis Nulty. In a month's time, we will celebrate our love for each other in the sacrament of marriage. With joy, but also a little anxiety, we will give ourselves to each other for the whole of our lives.
So many of our friends feel challenged by the idea of lifelong commitment. They feel that love is personal and does not need any institutional framework. How do we speak to them about the value of lifelong commitment of marriage and the special gift of the sacrament of marriage?
So a question for the Pope from the Sinead and Dennis as they prepare for their marriage and prepare for the sacrament of marriage, and a private word with the Pope, and then we understand the Pope will respond and answer their inquiry. Dennis and Sinead are from the Diocese of Kildare and Loughran. So perhaps we'll hear from the next couple who are Stephen Maguire and Jordan Cahill. First of all.
My name is Jordan Maguire.
And I am Stephen Maguire.
We have been married for just 1 month. It is our prayer that one day God will bless our marriage with the gift of children. As we prepare for that moment, how should we also prepare to get across to our children the importance of faith? So many young people today miss within their lives the special gift of knowing Jesus Christ.
So Stephen and Jordan Maguire with a question for Pope Francis, but also, of course, the opportunity for a private word. Married, as Jordan said there, for just 1 month.
Good afternoon. Cari amici,
Dear friends,
sono lieto
I am
di
pleased
potervi incontrare in questa
that we can meet in this historic Pro Cathedral of St. Mary's,
che negli anni
which has seen
ha visto innumerevoli
countless celebrations
del sacramento.
of the sacrament of matrimony over the years.
Guardando voi, così giovani,
Looking at you, so young
mi
people,
domando,
I ask myself,
non è vero quello che dicono che i
is it
giovani
not
non
true
vogliono
then what they're
sposarsi?
saying, that young people don't want to
È
marry?
vero.
Is it true or not?
Grazie.
Well,
Grazie.
grazie. Thank you.
Sposarsi e condividere la vita
Getting married and share your lives
è una cosa bella.
is a beautiful thing.
C'è un detto spagnolo
There's a
che
Spanish
dice
saying
così:
that says,
dolori in due,
if you
mezzo
share the
dolore,
pain, it's half the pain.
gioia in due.
The joy shared is a joy and a half.
E questa è la strada del matrimonio.
And this is the way marriage works.
Quanto amore è stato manifestato, quante grazie sono
The
state
love that's been
ricevute.
shared, the graces that have been received in this sacred place.
Ringrazio l'Arcivescovo Martin
I thank Archbishop
per il suo
Martin
cordiale
for
benvenuto.
his cordial welcome.
Sono particolarmente
I'm
contento
especially happy
di stare con voi,
to be with all of
coppie
you,
di fidanzati,
engaged
di
couples,
sposi che vi
married
trovate
couples,
in diverse fasi
at
del
different
percorso
stages of the journey
dell'amore
of sacramental love.
È anche bello sentire quella musica che viene
And it's lovely to hear the music coming
da
across.
bambini che piangono.
There are children crying.
Quella è una speranza.
This is hope. It's the sound
La
of
più bella
hope.
musica,
It's the best music you could have.
ma anche la più bella predica
But also a very good sermon
quando piange un bambino.
when you hear a child
È il
cry.
grido della speranza.
Because
Che
that's the
la vita
cry of hope.
continua, che la
Life
vita va
carries
avanti,
on.
che l'amore è fecondo.
Love has
Guardare i bambini,
created life.
ma anche
Looking at
ho
children.
salutato una signora anziana lì,
But again, I also said hi
anche
to
guardare gli anziani.
an older lady. Looking at old
Gli
people
anziani sono pieni di
is
saggezza.
beautiful because they're full of wisdom.
Ascoltare gli anziani.
If you listen to
Come è
them,
andata la tua vita?
how was your life?
Questo mi è piaciuto che
I like
siete
that.
stati voi a incominciare dopo 50 anni,
It was you who started after 50 years
che avete
of
tanta
marriage.
esperienza da
You were the
condividere.
first to speak. It means you have a lot of experiences to share.
Il futuro e il passato si incontrano nel
The
presente.
future and past meet in the present.
I vecchi,
The
permettetemi la parola,
old
i
people,
vecchi
I would use this word old.
hanno
Allow me to use this word.
la saggezza.
They have
Hanno la
wisdom.
saggezza. Anche le suocere
Even the mothers-in-law,
hanno la saggezza.
even they are wise.
E i bambini
The
devono
children,
ascoltare la saggezza. Voi dovete ascoltare.
they have to listen. You have to listen. You young people have to listen to wisdom.
Per
You have
portare
to
avanti,
talk to
perché
the old
loro
people
sono le radici.
to go on because they are the roots.
Loro sono le radici.
They are the
Voi
roots.
prendete le radici per portare avanti.
You start from the
Questo
roots to
sicuro
move
più
on.
avanti, ma mi viene dirlo dal cuore.
I should have said this later, but this was a
In
spontaneous
speciale, come ho
observation.
detto, sono grato per la testimonianza di Vincent e
I
Teresa,
am grateful
che ci hanno
particularly to
parlato
Vincent
della
and
loro
Teresa,
esperienza di
who
50
spoke to
anni
us
di
of their
matrimonio.
experience of 50 years of marriage and family life.
Grazie sia per le parole di
Thank you both
incoraggiamento,
for your
sia
words of
per le sfide che
encouragement
avete presentato alle
and for the
nuove generazioni.
challenges you address to the new generation of newlyweds and
Non
engaged
solo qui
couples,
in Irlanda.
not only here in Ireland, but throughout the world.
Loro non saranno come voi,
They won't be like
saranno
you.
diversi,
They will be
ma hanno
different.
bisogno della vostra esperienza
But they need
per
your
essere
experience
diversi,
in
per
order to be
andare
able
più
to be
avanti.
different, to go beyond, to go further.
È così importante ascoltare gli
It is so
anziani,
important to listen to the
ascoltare i
elderly,
nonni.
to our grandparents.
Abbiamo molto da imparare
We have
dalla
much to
vostra
learn from
esperienza
your
di vita
experience of a
matrimoniale
married life
sostenuta ogni
sustained
giorno
daily
dalla grazia
by
del
the grace of the
sacramento.
sacrament.
Mi viene la voglia
It
di
keeps you.
domandarvi, avete litigato troppo?
I wish to ask you, did you fight a lot? Did you fight too much?
Ma questo è parte del matrimonio.
But this is part of being
Matrimonio
married.
dove non si litiga.
A marriage with no fights must be boring.
Ma il segreto,
The secret,
possono volare i piatti,
even if
ma il
plates fly,
segreto,
crockery flies, but the secret
il segreto è fare la pace prima che finisca la
is
giornata.
to make it up before the end of the day.
E per fare la pace non è necessario un discorso,
To make it up, you don't need any speech.
basta una carezza così
Just
e la
a
pace è
stroke on
fatta.
the cheek and then peace coming back. Peace returns.
Perché
Do you know
se
why?
non si fa la pace,
Because if you don't make it up before going to bed,
la guerra fredda del giorno dopo
that will be
è
the Cold
troppo
War the
pericolosa.
next day. The Cold War is very dangerous
Incomincia il rancore.
because you start resenting.
Tutto quello che volete.
Fight as much as you want.
Alla notte fate la
Bicker.
pace.
But in the evening,
D'accordo?
please make
Non
peace.
dimenticate voi giovani.
Do not forget, you young people.
Crescendo insieme in questa comunità
You
di
grew
vita e di
together in
amore,
this partnership of
voi
life
avete
and love.
provato molte cose.
You have experienced many joys
Non poche
and
sofferenze.
certainly a few sorrows as
Insieme a
well.
tutti gli sposi che hanno
Together
fatto
with all
tanto
the spouses who have come far
cammino,
along this path,
siete i custodi della
you are the
nostra
keepers of our
memoria
collective
collettiva.
memory.
Avremo sempre
We
bisogno
will
della
always
vostra
need your
testimonianza
faith-filled
di
witness.
fede. È una risorsa
It is
preziosa
a precious resource for young couples
che guardano al
who
futuro
look to the future with
con emozione e
excitement
speranza.
and hope,
E anche
and maybe
forse con un pizzico di ansia.
a touch of trepidation.
Come sarà questo futuro?
How will this future be?
Ringrazio anche le giovani coppie
I also
che mi
thank
hanno
the young
rivolto alcune
couples
domande
who have asked me
spiese.
several
Non
forthright
è facile
questions.
rispondere a queste domande.
Not easy to answer their questions.
Denise e Siena
Dennis and
stanno
Sinead
per
are
imbarcarsi
about
in
to
un
embark
viaggio
on a
di
journey
amore
of intimate
che
love
secondo il progetto di Dio
that, in God's
comporta un
plan,
impegno per tutta la vita.
entails a lifelong commitment.
Hanno chiesto come possono,
They asked how they can
aiutare
help
altri a
others
capire che
to
il
see that
matrimonio
marriage
non è
is not simply an
semplicemente
institution,
un'istituzione, ma una
but a vocation.
vocazione, una vita che va avanti.
It goes on for the whole life. It's a decision taken, specifically conscious and lifelong decision
Aiutarsi,
to cherish,
proteggersi a
assist,
vicenda.
and protect one another.
Certamente dobbiamo riconoscere
And we have
che
to
oggi
acknowledge
non siamo abituati
that
a
nowadays we
qualcosa
are not
che
used
realmente
to
dura per tutta la vita.
anything that really lasts for the whole of our lives.
Cultura del provvisorio.
Our culture is very provisional, it's very temporary. We are not
Se
used to
sento
long
che ho
life.
fame o sete,
If
posso
I'm hungry or
nutrirmi,
thirsty, I can
ma
feed
la mia
myself.
sensazione di essere sazio non
But
dura
when I
nemmeno
feel
un giorno.
sated, that feeling doesn't last more than a day, less than a day. If I have a job, I know I could lose it against my will, or that I might have to choose a different path in my career. It is difficult to follow novelty, because things change, people come and go, in and out of our life. Promises are made, but very often they are not kept.
Forse quello che mi state chiedendo è in
Perhaps what you're
realtà
really asking me
qualcosa di ancora più fondamentale.
is something even more basic.
Non c'è davvero niente di
Is there
prezioso
anything
che
precious
possa durare?
that endures at
Questa è la
all?
domanda.
This is the question.
Sembra che nulla cosa bella, nulla cosa preziosa dura.
It
Ma non
seems
c'è
that
davvero
something beautiful,
qualcosa di
something that
prezioso.
should last, doesn't really last. But is there
Che possa
something so
durare.
precious
Neanche l'amore,
that could last?
e c'è la tentazione
Not even love
per
itself,
tutta la vita che voi diciate l'uno all'altro.
When we say for the whole of our lives,
sì, mentre dura l'amore.
Might become yes, as long as we are in love.
Non si fa crescere con amore.
But if you don't feed love with love, it won't last for very long.
Tutta la vita è un impegno di far crescere
For the whole of life, then you commit to make that love grow.
Perché nell'amore non c'è il provvisorio.
Because love
Questo si chiama
is not temporary.
entusiasmo.
Enthusiasm might be temporary.
Un po' incantamento.
Being
Ma
enchanted,
l'amore
but
è
love,
definitivo.
real love,
È un io
is final.
E come si dice fra noi,
as we say,
la metà dell'arancia.
It's half an orange.
Tu sei la mia metà arancia.
You are my
Tu sei
half.
la mia
You are
metà arancia.
the half of my orange.
Tutto per
That's
tutta
what
la
love is. Everything for the whole of life.
È facile rimanere prigionieri
It's easy to
della
feel
cultura dell'effimero.
trapped in the ephemeral culture.
Aggredisce le radici
This culture attacks the roots themselves of our notion of maturing or growing
Come possiamo
in love and hope. How can you
in questa
experiment
cultura dell'effimero
in this ephemeral culture
dura?
things that are really lasting?
Questa è una domanda forte.
This is a very strong question. How can we live in this ephemeral culture something that lasts? How can we experiment this? This is what I wanted to say. Of all the kinds of human fruitfulness, marriage is unique. It is about a love that gives rise to a new life. It involves mutual responsibility for the transmission of God's gift of life, and it provides a stable environment in which that new life can grow and flourish. Marriage in the Church, that is the sacrament of matrimony, shares in a special way in the mystery of God's eternal love. When a Christian man and a Christian woman enter into the bond of marriage, the grace of God enables them freely to promise one another an exclusive and enduring love.
Così la loro unione
And their union becomes a sacramental sign. It's a sacrament of marriage. Becomes a sacramental sign of the new and eternal covenant between the Lord and His bride, the Church. Jesus is ever present in their midst. He sustains them throughout life in their mutual gift of self, in fidelity and in indissoluble unity.
L'amore di Gesù,
His love is a rock, it's a refuge in times of trial. But more importantly, it's a source of constant growth in pure and lasting love.
Fate scommesse.
Take a bet. Take a strong bet. Bet on the whole life. Take risks.
Perché il matrimonio è anche un rischio.
Because marriage is a risk as well.
Ma è un rischio che vale la pena.
But it's a risk worth taking.
Per tutta la vita.
For the whole of your life.
L'amore è così.
Because that's what love is.
Sappiamo che l'amore è il sogno di Dio per noi e
God's dream for us and for the whole human family.
Per favore, non dimenticatelo mai.
Please never forget
Dio ha un
this.
sogno per noi.
God has a dream for us.
E chiede a noi di farlo
And He asks us to make it our
Non
own.
abbiate paura di
So do not be afraid of that dream.
sognate in grande.
Cherish it.
Fatene
Dream it together.
e sognatelo insieme ogni giorno
Each day anew.
nuovamente. In questo modo
In this
sarete in
way,
grado
you
di
will be able to
sostenervi
support one another with hope,
con speranza,
strength,
con forza e col perdono
and forgiveness
nei momenti
at those
in
moments
cui il
when the path grows
percorso
rocky
si fa arduo, diventa
and it
difficile
becomes hard
scorgere
to
la
see
via.
the road ahead.
Nella Bibbia
In the Bible,
Dio si
God
impegna
binds himself
a rimanere fedele
to remain
alla sua
faithful
alleanza,
to his covenant.
anche quando noi lo
Even
rattristiamo
when we grieve him
e il nostro amore si indebolisce.
or grow weak in our love,
Cosa dice Dio
He
nella
tells
Bibbia al
us.
suo popolo? Ascoltate bene.
in the Bible, God tells
Non
his
ti
people,
lascerò, non ti
I will never
abbandonerò.
fail you nor forsake you.
E voi come marito e moglie
As husband and wife,
ungetevi a vicenda con queste parole di promessa.
anoint one another with these
Ogni
words of
giorno per
promise
il resto della vita.
every day for the rest of your lives.
E non smettete mai di sognare.
And never stop dreaming.
Sempre ripetere nel cuore.
Repeat in your heart,
Non ti
I will never fail you nor forsake you.
Stephen e Jordan
Stephen and
sono
Jordan
sposi novelli
are newlyweds,
e hanno posto la domanda molto
and they asked the very
importante
important question of how parents
possono
can
trasmettere
pass
la
the
fede ai
faith
figli.
on to their children.
So che la Chiesa qui in Irlanda
I know that the church here in
ha
Ireland
accuratamente
has
preparato
carefully prepared
programmi di catechesi
catechism programs
per la fede
for teaching the
nelle scuole
faith
e
in
nelle
schools and
parrocchie.
parishes.
Cioè è certamente essenziale.
This is, of course, essential.
Ma il primo e più
Yet,
importante
the first and most important place for passing on the faith
è la casa.
is in the home.
Si impara a credere a
That's
casa.
where you learn the faith. You learn it at home.
Attraverso il calmo e
Through the
quotidiano
quiet
esempio
daily
di
example
genitori che amano
of parents
il
who
Signore
love our Lord
e confidano nella sua
and
parola.
trust in His word.
Lì nella casa
There,
possiamo chiamarla
in what we may
la
call
chiesa
the
domestica.
domestic church,
I figli
the home,
imparano il significato
children learn the
della
meaning
fedeltà,
of fidelity,
dell'onestà, del
integrity,
sacrificio.
and sacrifice.
Vedono come mamma e
They
papà
see how the
si
mother and
comportano
father
tra di
interact
loro,
with each other,
come si prendono cura
how they
l'uno
care for
dell'altro
each other and for others,
e degli altri, come
how they
amano
love
Dio
God
e la Chiesa.
and love the church.
Così i figli possono
In this way,
respirare l'aria
children
fresca
can
del
breathe
Vangelo
in the fresh air of the
e
gospel
imparare a
and
comprendere,
learn to understand,
giudicare,
judge,
agire in modo
and
degno
act in a
della
manner
fede
worthy
che
of the
hanno
legacy of
ereditato.
faith they have received.
La fede
The faith is passed on,
viene trasmessa
brothers and
intorno alla
sisters,
tavola domestica,
around the family table,
a casa,
in the
nelle
home,
conversazioni ordinarie,
in ordinary
attraverso il
conversation,
linguaggio che
in
solo
the language
l'amore
that persevering love alone knows how to speak.
Non dimenticatevi mai, fratelli e sorelle,
Do not forget
fede si
that
trasmette in
faith
dialetto,
is transmitted in your dialect.
il dialetto della casa.
In the dialect that is spoken in your home, the dialect of your life,
Della vita di famiglia.
of the family life.
Pensate ai 7 fratelli del
Think about
Maccabei,
the 7
come
Maccabei
parlavano
brothers.
dialetto, cioè
Their mother spoke to them in dialect,
poi arrivano
in what had become their language when they were young, when they were small.
È difficile ricevere la fede. Si può fare?
It is possible,
Non è stata
but it is more difficult to get the faith
lingua materna.
if it was not received in your real mother tongue, the language you speak at home.
Io sono tentato di
I'm tempted
parlare di un'esperienza mia da bambino.
to talk about my own experience as a child.
Ma se serve la dico.
If it's useful, I'll tell you.
Mi ricordo una volta,
I remember that once,
avrei avuto 5 anni,
I was about 5 years old.
sono entrato a casa
I went home,
e lì, nella sala da pranzo,
and in the dining room,
arrivava
my father was coming back from work.
in quel momento prima di me
Just
L'ho
before
visto
me,
papà e mamma baciando.
And I saw my father and my mother kissing each other.
Non lo dimentico mai.
I shall never forget that.
Cosa bella, stanco dal
What a beautiful thing. He was tired coming from work,
la forza di esprimere
but had the strength to express his love to his wife.
che i vostri figli
May your children see you like that, kissing, embracing. This is something beautiful. That is how they learn.
questo dialetto
They learn the dialect of love
e la fede,
and faith.
questo dialetto dell'amore.
Faith which is inside the dialect of love.
L'importante è pregare
So it's important
insieme in famiglia.
that the family prays together.
Parlate di cose buone e
Speak
sante.
of good and holy things.
Lasciate che Maria, nostra madre,
And let Mary, our mother,
la vita
come into your
familiare.
family life.
Celebrate le feste.
Celebrate the feasts of the Christian
I vostri
people.
figli sappiano cosa è
Let your children know what is a family feast.
Vivete in solidarietà con
Live
quanti
solidarity with those who suffer
sono al margine della società.
and are at the margin of society. And so your children will learn another story, I'll tell you.
Una signora che aveva 3 figli,
I met a lady who had 3 children,
7, 5,
7,
anni più o meno.
5 and 3 years more or less.
Era un bravo matrimonio.
It was a good marriage.
Loro avevano tanta fede.
They had a lot of faith.
Insegnavano i figli a aiutare.
They were teaching their children to help poor people
Aiutavano tanto.
through the example of helping poor people. Once they were
La
eating,
mamma con i 3 figli.
they were at the table, mother and 3 children. The father was working. Someone knocks on the door. The oldest child opens the door.
Viene, dice, mamma, un povero che chiede da mangiare.
Mommy, there's a poor guy who wants to get something. They were eating
Impanate, sono buonissime.
a very nice piece of meat, the Milan style cutlets.
E la mamma domanda ai figli, cosa facciamo?
The mother asked the children, yes, go, give us something, give him something. We have some spare ones.
La metà di ognuna dei figli.
The mother cuts its slice of meat in
No,
half.
mamma, dai quelli, no della
No,
nostra.
don't give them ours, give them the others.
Ai poveri dà del tuo.
No, to the poor people you have to give them of your own, not something left over. And that was the faith of this woman that taught their children to give what they have, to give their own things to the poor. All these things can only be done at home, when there is love, when there is faith, when you speak that dialect of the faith.
Insomma, i vostri figli impareranno da voi
Your children will learn from you
da cristiani.
how to live a Christian
Voi
life.
sarete i loro primi maestri,
You will be their first teachers in the faith.
trasmissori della fede.
You will transmit the faith to them.
Le virtù e le verità
The virtues and truths the Lord teaches
non
us
sono sempre popolari.
are not necessarily popular in today's world.
Il Signore chiede cose che non sono.
At times the Lord asks things that are not very popular.
Il mondo di oggi ha scarsa considerazione per il debole.
Today's world, the weak, the vulnerable,
Loro
and all those
improduttivi.
that are deemed unproductive are not very popular.
Il mondo ci dice di
The world
essere
tells us
forti,
to be strong and independent,
curandosi poco di quanto
with
sono
little care for those who are alone
o tristi,
or sad,
rifiutati o
rejected or sick,
non ancora
not
nati
yet
o
born
moribondi.
or dying.
Tra poco andrò privatamente a
In a
incontrare
moment, I will go privately to meet some families facing grave challenges and real hardship,
ma a cura del padre
but who are
Cappuccino
being shown love and support by the Capuchin fathers.
il nostro mondo
Our world needs a
ha
revolution
bisogno di una
of love.
rivoluzione dell'amore. L'atmosfera che noi viviamo
When there is a storm, the storm we're living in, it's a storm created by selfishness, personal
ha
interest.
bisogno di una rivoluzione dell'amore.
But the world needs a revolution
Questa
revolution of love
nasce da voi.
that should start with you and your families.
Io vi prego, A
few months ago, someone told me that we are losing our ability to love. Slowly but surely, we are forgetting the direct language of a caress, the strong of tenderness. It seems that tenderness is a word that's no longer in the dictionary. There will be no revolution of love without a revolution of tenderness. By your example, may your children be guided to become a kinder, more loving, more faith-filled generation, for the renewal of the Church and all of Irish society. In this way, your love, which is God's gift, will sink ever deeper roots. No family can grow if it forgets its roots. Children will not grow in love if they do not learn how to converse with their grandparents. So let your love sink deep roots. Let us never forget that all the flowers on the tree come from what is buried beneath. This is from an Argentinian poem, if you allow me to give it some publicity. Here, together with the Pope, may the families of the whole Church, represented this evening by couples old and young, give thanks to God for the gift of faith and the grace of Christian marriage. In turn, let us promise the Lord that we will serve the coming of His kingdom of holiness, justice and peace, by our fidelity to the vows we have made, and by our steadfastness in love. Thank you for meeting me here.
Adesso invito a pregare insieme.
Now, I invite you to pray with me.
Per il meeting per le famiglie.
The prayer of the family.
Poi vi darò la benedizione.
Then I shall give you my blessing.
Vi chiedo di pregare per me.
And I ask you to pray for me. Don't forget to pray for me.
God, our Father, who are brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, one family in the faith of love. Bless us with the joy of the love. Make us saints and generous, welcoming to those needs. Help us with gifts and peace. Protect your families with love and care, especially those from. Pensiamo alle famiglie care.
Let's think about our dear families.
In Christ, we'll fight. Keep us safe in the world. Make us always safe Mary, Mother and Wife, pray for us. Saint Joseph, Father and Protector, pray for us. Saint Joseph, my Son, pray for us. Saint Louis and Saint Martin, pray for us. God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Grazie.
So the Pope concludes his remarks and prayers in St. Mary's Pro Cathedral. To the congregation composed for the most part of young, engaged or recently married couples, two couples posing questions about their own futures together, asking about raising children in the faith and how they explain to others that for them marriage is not just an institution but a vocation, and the Pope replying that of all the kinds of human fruitfulness, marriage, he said, is unique. When a Christian man and woman enter into the bond of marriage, he told the congregation here at St. Mary's, the Lord's grace enables them freely to promise one another an exclusive and enduring love. And to newlywed Stephen and Jordan Cahill from Dublin, who asked how parents can pass on the faith to their children, he said that it's in a domestic church that children learn the meaning of fidelity, integrity and sacrifice. And looking ahead to his visit to the Capuchin Centre in Dublin in the next little while, and the needs of so many of the most disadvantaged in our society, the Pope said the world needs a revolution of love that should start, he said, with your families. Just as he leaves the Pro Cathedral, he'll have the opportunity to meet two more couples. I think we may well see that. I'm not sure. He will then go into the Pro Cathedral house for some private time. That's the choir, the gospel choir of Our Lady of Victory Church in Ballymon Road in Glasnevin in Dublin. There on the steps of the Pro Cathedral, the Pope laughing heartily. And I don't know if we'll see it, but he's expected to meet Roger and Eva O'Connor, their baby Francesca, who's 4 months old and is named after the Pope. As well as Ger and Martin Hamill and their 11-week-old daughter, Claudia. So, final farewells and good wishes to those who attended the ceremony and those indeed who are waiting outside to greet the Pope. And now he will once again embark on the Pope-mobile for that journey which, if you were with us earlier, we were able to show you on our map. He will travel up O'Connell Street, over O'Connell Bridge, along Westmoreland Street, past Trinity College, up Dame Street, past Dublin Castle, the entrance to Dublin Castle where he was earlier, then round by Christchurch Cathedral, High Street, back down over the River Liffey and up to the Capuchin Centre, where he'll be welcomed by Brother Kevin and the other members of that community. So listening to that among our guests here, Bishop Brendan Leahy, perhaps you might like to give us your reflection on the words we heard from the Pope there, laced with humour and an understanding actually of what it's like to be in a marriage. He mightn't have the direct experience himself, but he seems to have an insight of what often marriage can involve.
You see the Pope with great warmth, and he draws out of his own reserves, I think, of life experience, of humanity, of trying to love day by day, and he recognises there's no perfect picture, but he does want to say love has a dynamic in it, and that it's faithful, and if you can be faithful, and that it's possible. He wants to give hope, I think, which is lovely, but delivered in such a warm, fatherly way, in a way. It's beautiful to see.
Good piece of advice. Never let a row fester overnight.
Yeah, I was very struck by the way he said, learn from them. They will not be like you, they will be different. And that was the focus again on the grandparents, but also expanding that as the focus on the tradition. He said we must have deep roots. We must learn from the tradition of the church, but we must allow the church of the future to grow out of that tradition. it will be different. And I think that's words of great insight to us in Ireland at the moment. A sign of great hope. We have to learn from our tradition, our deep roots, which we have in Ireland, and then globally as a Christian community, but also let the future be different. Like grandparents have to let their children and their grandchildren be different.
And is that very much a theme of his papacy, the notion that the church needs to be open and capable of change?
I think so. I mean, like, he's not going to do all the changes that we would like him to do, or that maybe I would like him to do, but I think he's creating a church that allows for change to happen. His very approach, his attitude. He refreshingly went off script a number of times to make some very good points. He goes back to his own story, his life story. As a theologian, one of the first things he said to us was, keep going. If you make mistakes, learn from them. Continue on. And for me, that was a breath of fresh air, because that is his attitude. Learn from life, grow up, make mistakes.
And now we can see the Pope Mobile making its way down Cahill Brewer Street there, past little St Thomas's Church of Ireland. And he's turning now into O'Connell Street, round by the Gresham Hotel, past the Savoy Cinema. And
Church of Ireland, Brian, makes me remark that the Archbishop Michael Jackson of Dublin was among the greeting party at Dublin Airport, which I think may not have been noticed by everybody, but he was a very prominent figure there. And if I may say so, I like the way he referred to the music of the crying children in the church. You know, this is not someone who's aggravated by the sounds of children, you know, intruding on his life in the parochial house. It's quite the opposite. He wants to be in the homes of people, in the messiness of life.
So we're looking, you can see the Pope Mobile, the Pope on board, making its way down O'Connell Street there, so just past the Savoy Cinema. Substantial crowds of people have turned out to greet him on this short drive through the centre of Dublin, just a couple of miles, and then he will be arriving and be greeted by Brother Kevin at the Capuchin Centre. But just an opportunity now for people to see him up close, as it were, and as Joe was saying earlier, this is very much an initiative and something that Archbishop Dermot Martin was anxious to allow to happen. And quite clear, Bishop Brendan, just the warmth of his engagement with people. He is a pastor, and first and foremost, and that is the sense one gets him.
He's a pastor, he really is. But you know, he's also somebody who's lived life. He's somebody who himself has been through all kinds of experiences. Not always easy. He's had a lot of difficult experiences personally in his own life. So when he talks, he comes from, I think, deep reserves of someone who genuinely has tried to put love into practice in his life and has learned a lot. As you said, from his mistakes. But from that reason, he's able to give advice, and particularly that advice which he often repeats. You know, never get yourself just stuck in a rut. Oh, you can always start again. You can always start again. That's a big theme he has. You know, don't let the sun go down the evening time without having reconciled, made up. And you don't need a big talk to do that. A simple gesture, a simple start again.
Well, now the cavalcade is making its way towards O'Connell Bridge and then turning up Dame Street, where Miriam is standing by. So very shortly, Miriam, the papal cavalcade and the Pope Mobile will be passing just behind you there.
Absolutely, Brian, and everybody here in Dame Street is very excited. I'm joined by an historian, William Murphy. Thanks for joining me, William. He's going to talk us through the various locations Pope Francis is going through on the bridge at the moment.
Hi, Miriam, how are you? So Pope Francis, on his journey from the Pro Cathedral to the Capuchin Day Centre, is going to travel really through the heart of modern and historic Dublin. He's going to travel down through Westmoreland Street in a second now when he crosses the bridge. And then he'll turn right and he'll move along Dame Street westward through George and Dublin, and then into the old medieval heart of Dublin around Christchurch Cathedral, and eventually then he'll swing northward again and back up Church Street and to Bow Street beside Smithfield. So that's the broad parameter of his journey as he travels along.
And at the moment, I suppose, the significance of him passing through all these parts of Dublin, it means he really wants to feel that Dubliners got to know him.
Absolutely. I mean, travelling through the city like this is a huge opportunity for the Pope to connect with the populace and for the populace to connect with him. And the streets he's travelling along are ideal for this. They're the product, really, of the second half of the 18th century and the Wide Street Commission, which was established in 1757. And the idea was to create these broad, ordered streets which facilitated easy movement of traffic through the city and also allowed the gathering of crowds. In many ways, they're ideal processional streets in some ways. So he's going by Trinity, obviously, and you turn right down Dame Street here. And Dame Street was created in the second half of the 18th century to connect Dublin Castle, which is up here in the west, down to the Parliament building in College Green. And the idea was to create the sort of two great centres of power in late 18th century Dublin. So he's travelling really along what was the corridor of power of ascendancy Ireland in the 18th century. And as he does so, he's just passed the statues of Henry Grattan and Thomas Davis. Where Thomas Davis stands, there was a statue of William of Morton until 1928 and was blown up. And then it was replaced with sort of the patriot Thomas Davis in the middle of the century. Eventually the statue went up in 1966.
Lots of big crowds there now out for Pope Francis.
Absolutely. It's huge crowds, and as I say, it's great that the streets facilitate that kind of access to the Pope. And this kind of procession really in many ways is ideal. One of the purposes is to create this sense of community and communication between the Pope and the populace who might want to turn out and see him. They get to connect with him, they get to connect with each other and feel part of the occasion, etc.
Now we can see it when you're behind us.
Yes, and you can see obviously being led by the guards of the army coming down towards us. And as he goes, he's approaching us. We're beside City Hall, which was established as the Royal Exchequer in the 1770s, and it was taken over by the city in the 1850s and became the sort of seat of city power. Here, this is actually Exchange Court. So you can see the crowds waving here as he passes us. And now he's going to move on through away from really Georgian Dublin and I suppose in towards medieval Dublin. He'll be shortly going past Christchurch Cathedral. And Christchurch Cathedral is actually the biggest cathedral in the city, is the seat of the Archbishop of the Church of Ireland, but the Catholic Church still claims that it's their cathedral as well, which is why the building he left, the Pro Cathedral, is still merely called the Pro Cathedral and not a cathedral. So, you know, in theory, the Catholic Church would claim it for itself, but obviously in practice for many years it's been the home of the Church of Ireland. After Christchurch, you pass by the two St. Alban's churches. And there's the Catholic Church and the Church of Ireland Church. The Church of Ireland Church is a medieval church, named after St. Alban, who was a Norman saint. And the Normans brought the veneration of that saint with them to Dublin and established the church. And then the Catholic Church is a 19th century church, and it's part of the expression of revival of Irish Catholicism in the middle of the 19th century, after the end of the penal laws, and Catholics becoming more expressive and more powerful. Indeed, Daniel O'Connell contributed to the funding for the building of the church in the 1840s. And now, it's interesting, it's the chaplaincy of the Polish community in Ireland is in the Catholic St. Albans Church. And Poles make up, I think, the second biggest group of Catholics in contemporary Ireland.
And that's so interesting, because earlier actually when we spoke to a young Polish woman who that is her parish, St. Albans.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I remember one and only time I visited Poland, it was very interesting. I got on the airplane in Warsaw and sat into the taxi cab just before noon, and he had his radio on and the Angelus bell, and it was the first time I'd ever heard in any other country the Angelus bell on a radio.
And now we continue watching Pope Francis.
Yeah. So he's moving along here now, and shortly he'll begin to swing. He'll drop down towards the River Liffey, and he'll pass. As he does so, he'll swing by much of medieval Dublin. He'll swing by an old stretch of the old walls, the old city walls. He'll swing by Taylor Hall, which was a guild hall. And then he'll turn down towards the river, obviously, very infamously in the 1970s. There was lots of controversy about this area in Dublin as it was excavated, and the remains of the Viking city were found there around Wood Quay. But you know, they were built upon by Sam Stevenson's city offices when the city moved from where we're standing at City Hall and down towards the new city offices. And when he crosses the river, he'll cross over Fathermatty Bridge. And Father Matthew obviously was a sort of great temperance campaigner of early 19th century Ireland. He was a Tipperary man, but he was based in Cork, and he established a temperance movement in the late 1830s, which was the first time that temperance really engaged the mass of the Irish Catholic populace. Before that, it had been sort of an evangelical Protestant movement. And Father Matthew brought huge crowds out, hundreds of thousands took their pledge and joined up. But it sort of ran out of steam as a movement, really, when O'Connell's repeal movement started to grow in the 1840s.
You're a fountain of information. Keep going.
He's crossing the bridge as we speak, I think.
Yeah.
And then he'll sort of head up Church Street. He's passing very close by the Four Courts. The major courts of the city since for a very, very long time. The buildings as we know them now were created in the first instance in the 18th century, but obviously they were destroyed during the Civil War, or largely destroyed during the Civil War, and were rebuilt during the 1920s and 30s and reopened in the 1930s. So that'll be, he'll see that as he crosses the river to his right hand side, and sort of to his left hand side, and off the river we have sort of Smithfield, the markets and that area behind him. And again, Smithfield is a suburb which grew up in the late 17th and 18th century, and the hope was at that point that it would be sort of a very posh suburb, but lots of the posher people didn't want to live in the markets area, etc. So now obviously it's a very vibrant cultural centre and part of the city. And as he did so, he swung past, as he came up Church Street then, he swung past St. Michan's Church, and he swung past the Father Matthew Hall, and now he's turning in towards Smithfield, as I see it, towards the Capuchin Day Centre, where obviously he's going to
meet Brother Kevin.
Yes.
A living saint, Brother Kevin Crowley. He couldn't have picked a nicer man to go and visit on the Capuchin Centre. So worthy.
Absolutely, and the Capuchin. Brother Crowley, he's been working there, I think, since 1969, and I read recently that they're serving as many as 800 meals a day to obviously homeless, but other people who are in distress there, and there's many as 1,400 meals a week being sent out to the needy around the city. And I think it's, processions as a sort of religious event, where they begin and where they end matters. It's a journey to someplace, and I think it's very important for Francis that he's making a point about where he concludes. Obviously, when he became Pope himself, he took the name Francis, and the Capuchins are the Capuchin Franciscans, and so he's nodding back towards St. Francis of Assisi, and a sort of simple Catholic life, and consciousness of the poor, and a church which sort of divests itself of worldliness and its riches, etc. So Francis in the medieval period was a sort of revolutionary inside the church, emphasising social justice and poverty, and I think Pope Francis wants to associate himself with that in going to the Capuchins.
He's just at the Capuchins now, so I think I'll hand back now to Brian in the studio.
Thank you indeed, Miriam. We're just seeing the Pope there, lights from the Pope Mobile. Substantial crowds lining the route that he took there from the Pro Cathedral, from St. Mary's. Not taking him too long, of course, the road's clear. There's Brother Kevin greeting the Pope and welcoming to the Capuchin Day Centre on Bull Street. And the Pope, we know, expressly wished to make this visit, regarded from an early stage of the planning of this as an important moment. We're joined by one of the members of the community there, Brother Richard Hendrick, is with us here in studio. A warm welcome there from Brother Kevin and others of your colleagues, Brother Richard, for the Pope on this historic occasion.
Well, I think for us, we're welcoming someone who has a Franciscan heart anyway, having taken on the name of Francis at the beginning of his papacy, and always stressing the outreach to the poor, to the marginalised, and particularly an outreach that establishes their dignity. So this is the Pope just meeting our provincial minister, the head of the Capuchins in Ireland there, Brother Adrian Curran. He was met at the door by Brother Kevin and by Brother Sean, our co-director of the Day Centre. And I was speaking just there to Brother Peter Rogers, who's the guardian of the community in Church Street, and meeting other members now of the Capuchin community there. Brother Jude, famously the Olympic judo coach for Zambia in his missionary days. Brother Ona Sullivan, a theologian and writer, now chaplain to the Bonds Hospital. Brother Flan, who was a missionary in New Zealand for many years and teaches meditation. Brother Patrick, who is our mission secretary and looks after our outreach to the foreign missions.
So most of the members of your community have gathered here today?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The full community are there. It's a wonderful event for us and a historical event for the Church Street community, and I suppose a validation as well for over 400 years of service to the poor of Dublin. The day centre only being the most recent outreach of the friars to the poor and the indigent in the area. It's now meeting one of the oldest members of our community, it's Brother Angelus, who's quite ill at this time, so even Angelus came in to be received. Angelus was one of the pioneers of the devotion to Padre Pio. And this is Brother Brian Shortall, who's our parish priest. We also care for the parish of Halston Street, the Markets area parish, and Brian looks after the parish there. So you're seeing the main area of the centre now, where he's meeting the volunteers and the homeless. There's a huge number of volunteers to keep the centre going. And the Pope now greeting some of the clients of the centre. And lately we've had, sadly, a huge increase in families attending the centre. And the centre is known for a designated family area. Just in 2015, for example, over 8,000 children were looked after by the day centre. So part of the ongoing homelessness crisis in Ireland today.
The Pope, again, spending time with the children and acknowledging each of them, their parents, their families, gathered here.
Many different communities represented as well. There's a huge outreach to immigrants, and particularly providing things like translation services, for example, or counselling services in their own language, uniting them with their own communities, and chaplains from their various different religions and faiths.
And the centre, Brother Richard, is open every day?
It's open 6 days a week. We have one day we have to close for cleaning, under the old health and safety regulation. So 6 days a week from 7 in the morning until 7 in the evening. The centre was originally established as a day centre because where there were hostel accommodations present in the area, the hostels very often, their clients had to leave them very early in the morning. They were out around the streets, had nowhere to go. And so the centre began as an outreach to what would have been mostly elderly, homeless men at the time in the 1960s, and now has become a huge outreach to vast numbers.
The scale of your work involves providing hundreds of meals, for example, every day?
Yeah, we provide about 800 to 900 meals every day. That's at a breakfast. There's a breakfast sitting and a lunch sitting. The policy is anyone who comes to the door receives, no questions are asked. Brother Kevin has always been very strong on maintaining that the people who knock on our door have lost so much, that to inquire of them why they are there, who they are, is another kind of a belittling experience. So as Franciscans, we simply say everyone we meet is a brother or sister, and they deserve the same care we would offer to our brothers and sisters, and so that's what Kevin does.
And the importance of the volunteers, of the lay volunteers, we saw the members of your own community. You're a small group, so none of this would happen.
Absolutely
were it not for the volunteers.
No, the centre runs on its volunteers, and there's an ongoing volunteer programme. In fact, very often we find that we're inundated with requests for people to volunteer, particularly in the day centre. So there's a waiting list at this stage for people to come and volunteer. We also have an outreach program to transition year students, and they get an awful lot out of their meeting with the people in the centre and working with the teams there. A lot of religious sisters also work there, the presentation sisters who are long-time members of the parish community going right way back to their foundation. They over the years have helped out as well and continue to help out.
So the Pope now, Brother Richard, is meeting some of those who use the centre, who would be familiar to you, people you would see.
Yeah, we know some of them. Many of them are regulars. I was a member of the Church Street community for many years. I'm now a member of our community in Donegal, which is a retreat centre community. But I know a lot of the faces there and a lot of the men and women. I suppose one of the things that we had asked in terms of the coverage was that
we wouldn't centre in too much on the clients because they deserve their dignity as well in terms of being people who access these services.
So to respect their privacy.
Sure. Yeah.
Certainly, they look delighted with
they're very happy.
Yeah.
They're very happy. We were talking during the week, some of us, around the reaction amongst the community, the homeless community, and they were in shock that the Holy Father wanted to come to them, wanted to be with them, wanted to meet them. And I suppose he's reached out to the day centre particularly because Brother Kevin met with the Pope in January of 2016, I think it was. He was over there in Rome as part of his Golden Jubilee celebrations. We have a tradition that we make a pilgrimage to Rome and Assisi as part of our Golden Jubilee celebrations. He was there, he met with the Pope, attended his daily Mass, and was very, very taken. I think they were taken with each other, and so it was unsurprising maybe that the Pope chose the day centre as the place to come to.
We were commenting earlier that in his remarks in the Pro Cathedral, Brother Richard, the Pope was talking about the need for a revolution. And a revolution in love, and he was making those remarks in the context of this visit now that he's making at the moment. How important for you is your faith and the faith of the other members of your community in the work that you do?
Well, this simply wouldn't exist without our faith. It comes out of our faith. It comes out of the idea that Jesus himself came so that we would know the divine presence in all of our brothers and sisters, rich and poor alike. But it's worthwhile always remembering within our Christian tradition, the very thing Jesus teaches we will be judged upon is how we have treated the poor, how we have treated those on the edges, how we have treated those who maybe have nothing in life. And then going forward, I suppose, into our own Franciscan way of being, our Franciscan commitment. St. Francis was a man who very much chose a poor life and a poor way of living and a simpler way of living. So I think they're going to greet each other now as they perhaps at the more formal part of the visit.
So the Pope perhaps will say a few words?
We hope so.
Your Holiness, our brother Pope Francis, the Capuchin brothers have always been known as the brothers of the people. In these days, you yourself are the inspiration of that title. You are a true brother to the people and a true brother to the poor. Our brothers and sisters who use this centre do so in a spirit of dignity and respect. That same dignity and respect that you love to see in every family. Here in the Capuchin Day Centre, we also a family of the poor and the marginalised in our society. This centre was opened in 1969 for the purpose of helping needy people. At the outset, we provided warm shelter and hot food for about 50 people each day. From those humble beginnings, we now provide our daily basis over 800 hot meals to our vulnerable and needy family members. In our centre, they can also find help from our doctor, our dentist, our optician, our chiropodist, our nursing staff, our dedicated family social worker, and even our hairdressers, and our medical personal hygiene, clothing, and washing needs. In this year of the family, our primary concern is for the dignity and respect of each person attending our centre. We do not ask any questions of those who frequent this place, as we feel it's difficult enough for them to come and to bring their children here to be fed and nourished. Our main concern is that no one should go hungry. Your Holiness, on behalf of all who frequent this centre, be they the poor and the needy, our staff and volunteers, and our benefactors, we give you a warm welcome and promise you our prayerful support as you go about the world embracing the poor. Caro fratello, fratelli cappuccini,
dear brother Cappuccins,
voi tutti fratelli e sorelle.
and all of you here, brothers and sisters.
Lei ha detto che i cappuccini sono noti come i fratelli del popolo, vicini al popolo.
You said that the Capuchin brothers are known for being brothers of the people.
E questo è vero.
This is true.
E se qualche volta
If sometimes
qualche comunità cappuccina si allontana dal popolo di
the
Dio,
Capuchin community moves away from the people,
cade.
then it falls.
Voi avete una speciale sintonia col popolo di
You
Dio,
have a special understanding with the people of God,
anzi con i poveri.
and with the poor especially.
Voi avete la grazia di
You have the grace
contemplare
of contemplating
le piaghe di Gesù
the wounds of Jesus
in persone che hanno bisogno,
in
che
those who are
soffrono,
needy, in real need,
che non sono felici
who are not happy
o che non hanno nulla
because they have nothing,
o sono pieni di vizi e defetti.
or they're full of vices and
E per
defects.
voi è la carne di Cristo
For you it's the
e
flesh of Christ,
questa è la vostra testimonianza
and this
e
is
la
your
Chiesa ha
witness,
bisogno di questa
and the church
testimonianza.
has real need of this witness.
Grazie,
Thank you.
grazie.
Thank you.
Un'altra cosa, poi parlerò a voi.
I'm arriving to you in a second.
L'altra cosa che lei ha detto che mi ha toccato il cuore,
Something else you said that really touched my heart,
in cui voi non mandate nulla.
that you don't ask anything for anything here.
È Gesù che viene,
It's Jesus who comes.
non mandate nulla.
You don't ask anything.
Accettate la vita come viene,
You accept life as it comes,
date consolazione
consolation,
e se hai bisogno perdonate.
and if you have need to, you forgive.
Questo è un rimprovero, ma
This is a
Mi-
little admonition,
mi fa pensare
but it makes me think
tanti preti
of so many priests
che vivono domandando sulla vita altrui
who live asking about life of others,
e che nella confessione scavano
and in
le
confession a
cose.
little bit too inquisitive, wanting to know and know.
La vostra testimonianza
Your witness,
insegna
the
ai
sign
sacerdoti
to
a
priests
ascoltare,
to
essere
listen,
vicini,
to be close,
perdonare
to forgive,
e non domandare troppo,
and don't ask too much,
essere semplici,
to be simple, ordinary,
come Gesù
as Jesus,
ha detto che ha fatto quel padre,
as Jesus said that father did.
che quando il figlio tornò pieno di peccati e
When the
vizi,
son came back full of vices and sins,
il padre
the father
non si sentò al confessionale
didn't sit in the confessional
e incominciò a
and
domandare,
began asking and digging for information.
prese la penitenza del figlio, il pentimento,
He saw the sorrow of the son
e lo abbracciò.
and he embraced him.
Che la vostra testimonianza
Your witness
di vicinanza al
of
popolo di Dio
closeness to the people of God,
e questo cuore di
this
saper
heart
perdonare
of knowing how to
senza
forgive
far soffrire
without causing suffering,
arrivi a tutti i preti.
that really is a message that gets to the hearts of all priests.
Grazie.
Thank you.
A voi cari fratelli e sorelle,
All brothers and sisters,
vi ringrazio per l'amore e la fiducia
I thank you for the love and faithfulness
che avete con i padri cappuccini.
that you have for the Capuchin Fathers.
Grazie di venire con fiducia.
I thank you for coming here with trust.
E io vi dirò una cosa.
I ask you one thing.
Sapete perché venite con fiducia?
Do you know what it means to have trust?
Perché loro vi aiutano senza togliervi la dignità.
They help you without taking away your dignity.
Per loro ognuno di voi è Gesù Cristo.
It's the face of Jesus Christ.
Grazie per la fiducia che dai a noi.
Thanks for the trust that you offer, that you give.
Voi siete la Chiesa.
You are the church.
Siete il popolo di Dio.
The people of God.
Gesù è con voi.
Jesus is with you.
Loro vi daranno le cose che voi avete bisogno.
They will give you things that you need.
Ma ascoltate
but listen
I consigli che loro vi danno.
To the counsels also that they give, the advice that they give.
Sempre vi consiglieranno bene. E se avete qualcosa, qual dubbio, qual dolore,
if you have a pain,
parlate con loro.
Hurt, speak to them.
E vi consiglieranno bene.
And they will counsel you well.
Voi sapete che vi vogliono bene. Al contrario non sarebbe quest'opera.
You know that they want you, they love you very much, otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Grazie per la fiducia.
Thank you for the trust.
E un'ultima cosa, pregate.
And please pray.
Pregate per la Chiesa.
Pray for the church.
Pregate per I sacerdoti.
Pray for priests.
Pregate per I cappuccini.
Pray for the Capuchin.
Pregate per I vescovi.
Pray for the bishops.
Per il nostro vescovo.
Pray for our bishop.
E anche pregate per me.
And also pray for me.
Mi permetto di chiedere un po'.
I allow myself to ask you this, please.
Pregate per I sacerdoti, non
pray
dimenticate.
For priests, don't forget.
Grazie tante.
Thank you so much.
Adesso
and now,
ognuno di voi,
each one of you,
entra nel proprio cuore.
Go deep down into your heart.
E pensi alle persone care.
And think of your loved ones.
Perché darò la benedizione.
Because I'm going to
anche a loro,
your blessing, which is extensive to them also.
E facciamo un passo in più.
And let's go one step forward.
Se qualcuno di voi ha un nemico,
if you have any of you, if you have an enemy,
o qualcuno che non lo voglio bene,
or someone you don't like very much,
mettalo nel cuore.
Put them also into your heart now.
Così riceverà la benedizione.
So that they will also receive this blessing I'm going to give.
God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you very much.
So the Pope concluding with a blessing for all of those gathered to greet him here at the Capuchin Centre in Dublin, and warm words of affection for Brother Kevin and for members of the community and for the work they do. And so a gift from the community to the... Well, I think we knew at the outset of this visit that there would be many aspects to the Pope's 2 days in Ireland, official engagements, large gatherings wishing to greet him, people turning out in the streets. But this has been certainly a powerful encounter with an extraordinary and remarkable group of Capuchin Fathers and with those who work with them.
Y él tiene un regalo para ti. Para el campo.
So this is a gift to the Pope of a haversack. Ian Bailey, I think we can see there, is the manager of the centre, and Alan Bailey and Rosemary, I think is the lady who's just receiving the blessing.
Volunteers there, yeah.
She's there with her guide dog, Kia, and she's presenting this rucksack to the Pope, and it contains a sleeping bag, a tent,
reminds one of the sleeping bags that were passed out at the time of Storm Ophelia some months ago at that very location. And Brother Kevin spoke with me on camera and drew attention to the oversight by the government in not putting out a warning that the homeless people had to be looked out for very particularly. I don't think he thought it was malicious, but they thought it was indicative of perhaps our forgetting of the people on the margins in our bureaucracy at a time of crisis.
So that, I think we're just looking at another part of the centre, Brother Richard, where
they were volunteers and their families gathered now to greet the Pope as he leaves, as he comes out. He'll spend a few moments with them as well.
So an extraordinary moment, a very powerful moment, a very moving moment. I think the Pope coming among the most disadvantaged in our city.
Absolutely, and I think that there's something about this particular Pope. He seems to always connect not just well in a kind of a publicity way, but he connects in heart and in spirit when he's in these places with these people. And I think that was one of the things that Brother Kevin caught from him when he was over in Rome and visited with him. That the Franciscan spirit is a very simple spirit. It speaks in a very simple way. St. Francis always said to the brothers, that when they preached, they were to preach using very simple